Welcome. We are going to discuss about the star lord of a planet's sublord. This gives rise to the concept of sublord in Krishnamurti Paddhati. Now, Shri KSK has utilized this concept, the concept of star lord as a significator. But the professor has utilized this concept with some degree of inconsistency. So this has resulted in some confusion within the KP community. But sublord as a significator in the Krishnamurti Paddhati impacts the table of significator. So it is important that you understand that what is meant by the star lord of a planet sublord or sublord as a significator in KP. You should not confuse this with the sub-sub. Sub-sub is a different concept. When you divide a star lord into 9 parts, each is called a sub. And when each sub is further divided into 9 parts, and that is what becomes a sub-sub. But we are not discussing the sub-sub in this video. We are just focusing on the star lord of a planet's sublord. In a few of my earlier videos, I highlighted two notable extensions to Krishnamurti Paddhati, and those are the KB or the Bhaskaran's method. It's commonly also called as the uh, Cuspal interlink, CIL. It's actually called the CIL. Many of you might be aware of it. It's called the Cuspal interlink method, and this method was made popular by Krishnamurti's disciple Bhaskaran. And then second is the 4-step method in Krishnamurti Paddhati. So both of these methods I have explained in some of my earlier videos. So the question is that what is the necessity for new extensions or the experiments in Krishnamurti Paddhati? Why do we need the new concept or the new methods or the new extensions? Even the sublord as a significator in KP is slightly different from the usual things that we tend to learn about the KP predictive astrology. Now, my own personal feeling is that not everything works 100% in the KP natal, the KP birth horoscope. The KP rules, they don't 100% work in all the charts. Okay, so the existing KP techniques are insufficient, especially in the birth chart. Or I would say here we are just talking about mostly about the birth chart. So what happens is, as a student, you quickly discover that the usual KP approach doesn't work in many of your family members' uh, charts. So this is the usual confusion that the students have. Many beginners in the KP astrology, when they send me an email, usually one of their concerns is that the KP lessons I was taught doesn't work in many of my family members' chart. So what do I do? This is not something unusual. This is very known thing in the KP framework. But in a typical online class, what I have noticed is that the only birth chart where KP works like a charm are discussed. This is what happens in a typical online KP class. Only those birth charts are discussed where KP rules are working 100%. Then the birth charts where KP rules appear to fail are never mentioned or discussed. This is one of the major drawback of the most of the online KP classes. I think a good teacher should also discuss that why KP rules they fail, and even if he or she doesn't know the reason, but this will motivate the student to first is this will help the student to understand that there are challenges within the KP framework also, and second is that he or she as a student will get motivated to do some more experiments within the KP framework. But typically, if at all any chart that has some confusion comes up, then the whole discussion is lost in overlapping conversation. There is no clarity what a student or a beginner in KP need to do when he or she gets stuck up with a chart where KP rules are not seemingly working. And of course, the last but not the least is that the whole thing, the whole blame is kind of assigned to the incorrect birth time, and then the whole conversation gets into the useless birth time rectification. These days, most of the birth chart has a very accurate birth information. So the serious students of Krishnamurti Paddhati who are aware that Krishnamurti framework is not sufficient and then they need to experiment. This is how the cuspal interlink method or the four-step method have evolved. I am not a very big fan of the CIL and the four-step, but it is a good idea to explore and understand that what is the need, why these new methods are being pushed in the market, and these are coming from really good Krishnamurti's student or really people with very good understanding of Krishnamurti Paddhati. Now, similarly, this the sublord as a significator in KP, this is usually not taught or explained or discussed in the online classes. So, in this video, we are going to uh, understand that what exactly is meant by this particular concept. And we will apply this to a horoscope so that you have a good understanding of what is meant by the sublord as a significator, and then I will leave it up to you to do some further experiment or research and decide for yourself whether you want to use it or not. So let's navigate to the Jyotish portal where we are going to prepare a birth horoscope. Now, when you are in the Jyotish portal and when you create a birth chart, then all the table of signification for the sublord as a significator is also given. So that I'm going to show you. So this is our example chart. When you are on the the worksheet view, the WV, we usually call it a worksheet view. Sometimes we call it a quick view. Then you have a planet signification table that is only up to the sublord level. But we have to look at the star lord of a planet's sublord. So basically what we have to do is we have to look at first we have to look at the sublord. So for example, Ketu sublord is Rahu and Venus sublord is Saturn, Sun sublord is Venus, but we have to go one step further and then we have to look at the star lord of this sublord. So for that you have to click on the detail view. When you click on the detail view, then you have some more tables popping up. And if you scroll, then you find that this particular table is the one that you have to set your focus on. So in this table, you see there is one extra column there, and the heading is star of sub. I'm going to explain you in some more easier language what exactly is this. But this is the table that you need for preparing a list of significators according to the uh, when you tend to apply sub as a significator in Krishnamurti Paddhati. So you have a planet, you have a star lord, and then you have a sub lord, and then after that you have a star of sub. So I am going to first explain you that how this last column values are populated. It is actually very easy. So I'm going to copy this table and then explain you with a very easy way. So I've copied uh, these planet signification table in our notepad, and now I'm going to show you how the last column value is populated. Very easy. So what we want to achieve is the star lord of a planet's sublord. If you want to understand this in a more easier term, then we can say a planet's sublord, star lord. Find, we can make it a little more simpler. Find a planet's sublord's star lord. So let's take this example of Ketu. So when we say find a planet's sublord star lord, so what we are going to, let's mention Ketu below the planet Ketu. Sublord, let's look at the Ketu sublord, it is Rahu. So we are going to mention Rahu. And what we are trying to do is, we are trying to find the Rahu, the star lord value over here. So now we will look at the row that has a Rahu signification, and then we have to look at the star lord value. So what we find over here, Mars, and that is what we have mentioned over here, Mars. Similarly, so we'll mention Mars, right? Similarly, let's take another example. Let's take planet is, let's take Venus. And then the sublord. So Venus sublord is Saturn. And now we have to look at Saturn's star lord. So we will go to the Saturn row, and then we will look at the star lord column, and we find that it is Saturn. So we will just mention Saturn and then just copy the Saturn value. So already mentioned over here. Similarly for Sun is very easy. The planet is Sun, and the planet sublord, the Sun sublord is Venus. And then now again you have to focus on the Venus column, and then you find it is Sun. So all you have to do is just put Sun's value in the last column. So this is how you prepare the list of the signification for the last column. Like I mentioned, this is very easy, but it has impacted the table of signification. Now you see there is an additional column with some more signification. Now this concept, the sub as a significator, keeps appearing in Krishnamurti's various books. Sometimes he has made use of it, sometimes he has not made of use. He has not used it. So there is a degree of inconsistency, like I mentioned. In some of the K.M. Subramaniam's book, Krishnamurti ji's son, so he has consistently followed the sub as a signification. In at least one book, I noticed this. But I will discuss the confusion, what kind of a confusion it creates. I will share that why I don't follow it, but you have to understand that why this particular concept came into the picture. And another very important thing for you to note is that this particular layout where the sublord is used as a significator is from where this whole four-step theory concept evolved. I have a video on the fourth step, and in this Jyotish portal you can find the four-step signification table also. But the whole foundation is based on this kind of a signification for the four-step table. Now you can find both the tables over here. So you have a one table where the planet signification is up to the sublord level, and then the second one is where we have the star of sun that we just discussed. And let's quickly look at how the predictive side is impacted by the use of these two different set of significations. The usual KP rule is that the 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 planet and the star lord together, they will indicate some kind of a event or some kind of a thing that are going to happen in a person's life, and the sublord eventually decides whether things are going to be positive, negative, or things are not even going to happen. This is the typical rule. So I'm going to put this in two different shells. So this rule, the first shell, this shell decides the focus on a specific event, and for that we have various combinations. For example, for marriage, you have 2, 7, 11. For childbirth, 2, 5, 11. For business, you have 2, 6, 10. So that's a house grouping. So that indicates that where the focus is on the Dasha timeline. And then the sublord decides whether that particular event which is going to happen, what kind of flavor it has, positive, negative, good, bad. So they tend to sit in their two different island. The sublord is sitting in its own island, and these the house grouping is sitting in its own isolation. But over a period of time, you will see that even in Professor Krishnamurti's books, especially his book on transit, in this book his rules are little different. In that book, this kind of a segregation or a partition between the planet and the sublord has been diluted, and now you have to look at all these combinations in just one particular glance. Everything come together: the sublord, the star lord, and the planet signification. If you read especially the last pages of his book Transit, then you will find that the initial rule where they were two different compartments and has been a little bit diluted. So that's one thing, that over a period of time Professor KSK himself seems to have evolved these rules. Now, if you bring in the this particular table, then you have this kind of a segregation where the planet is indicating or promising these kind of results, and now this set of the signification is decides whether the particular thing is going to be positive or negative. So it creates a lot of additional set of significators. And what I have noticed is that the 1 to 249 table that is mentioned in the third reader, the this table which has the planet, and then you have the star lord and sub lord. This table has been referenced by Professor Krishnamurti a lot many times. So if a planet is, let's say, in the star of, let's say a planet is in the star of Saturn and sub of Mars. So these are two malefic planets, Saturn and Mars. So they tend to indicate some kind of a negativity in a person's character sketch. Okay, I'm not saying that the just by virtue of being in that particular star and the sub, the houses are also taken into consideration. So the Saturn and Mars plus the bad houses. So many places you will find that Professor Krishnamurti has mentioned that if somebody has this kind of combination where malefic planets are there, and then at the same time the bad houses like 6, 8, 12 are also involved, then it is going to create a negative reflection on a person's character sketch. Now, if you bring in the fourth, the fourth column, then a planet may be in the Saturn star lord, Mars sub, and let's say Jupiter's becomes the fourth column. Jupiter appears at the fourth column. Now the interpretation might change, and this is where the confusion is. We don't know whether the Jupiter's signification in the fourth column, if we talk about the sub as a significator, then how it is going to impact the whole notes or remarks that Professor Krishnamurti has mentioned about the whole star sub and the star lord and sub lord for the 1 to 249 division that he has made. So this kind of a confusion you will consistently see in various of his books. Sometimes he says that if the sublord is, let's say, the lord of the 12th house, then the bad thing will happen. But in a few examples, the same sublord, if it is further deposited in the star lord of a good house, then the result gets modified. So there is no consistency, and that is where the whole confusion is. KP community is already aware of this confusion, and I've seen some very good discussions on this. So for this reason, I stopped making use of the fourth column, the sublord as a significator. But like I mentioned, the whole concept of four step has actually evolved from the taking into consideration the column 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now the horoscope, the example horoscope that we use, that was Professor Krishnamurti's own horoscope. So if you If you look at, he went through the Jupiter period and then the Saturn period. Now, if you look at the Jupiter period, so in the Jupiter period, if you look in this table, then you have this combination in his life. But if you look at this table, then he had this combination. So even at the fourth column, the moon is appearing again because moon is in the star of moon. So it becomes the significator in the fourth column. So it doesn't provide any additional value. Similarly, after the Jupiter period, he had the Saturn period. Saturn also you will find the same thing. So Saturn also doesn't provide any additional value if we bring in the fourth column. Now I'm not saying that this is typically what happens, but I'm just trying to assess Professor Krishnamurti's own chart by using the fourth column. In the Mercury, if you look at this table, then Mercury is indicating this result. But here the Mercury starts indicating this result. If you take the fourth column also into the picture. So the best thing is that I don't want to discourage you based on my own opinion. I would highly motivate you, and I would highly urge you that you should definitely look into this the sublord as a significator concept in Krishnamurti Paddhati. And the best thing is that you should start applying to your chart or to your family member chart, friends and relatives. And in the process, sometimes you get a new insight. So that is the whole idea of explaining you the concept of sub as a significate. So I hope the how the sub as a significate table is prepared, that's clear to you, and how it is applied in the table of signification, that also is clear to you. Now you have to do your own experiments. Now let me get back to where we started with this question. The KP lessons I was taught doesn't work in many of my family members' chart. Like I mentioned that I get these kind of emails from some users. So now you know why these new experiments and new extensions are required within the KP framework. KP framework is still one of the most promising framework in the Vedic astrology. I have no doubt about it. It is easier to understand. It is consistent most of the time. It is logical also. So at the end of the video, I would just say two things. That you should appreciate the promises hidden within the KP framework. The Cuspal interlink theory and the four-step theory are two very good examples of the promises that are hidden in the KP framework. And if you put your own efforts in identifying some new patterns into the KP framework, you might be able to find some new fresh insights that you later would like to share with the KP community. So that's all in this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it.